It looks like from my thumbnail that I had a really good reading month, but I didn't really. We're going to talk about it. So the first two books that I read in May were Beneath the Sugar Sky and In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire, which are books 3 and 4 in the Wayward Children series. If you don't know, the Wayward Children series is a series about teenagers who have gone through magic doors into magical lands and come back to the regular world and are having a difficult time dealing with not being in their magical world. And so there's a boarding school for these children. And each story follows basically a different teenager. And it's kind of going back and forth. Each book is kind of going back and forth between a character's backstory of like where they went in their magical world and what's going on in the present time in the boarding school, basically, is how it's going back and forth with the series. So Beneath the Sugar Sky is about the students at the school, but they end up going on a really big adventure, and they actually end up going to one of the magical worlds together, which is really cool, which is like a Candyland, and it's called Confectionery. I adored the first half of this book. And it's a little hard to tell because it's such a skinny book, but I did a lot of tabbing in the first half, not as much in the second half. The second half I found to be, I don't know, a little less whimsy than the first two, and a little less whimsy than the first half of this book even, because they actually go to 2 different magical lands in this book, and I loved when they went to that world, but when they went to Confectionery, it wasn't really the same anymore. However, I still did really enjoy it. The second half, I still really liked. I just wasn't like completely like sighing because I was in love with it like I did with the first half and with the first 2 books. And then I read In an Absent Dream, which is the 4th book, which is one of the prequel stories following Lundy, who is a character who is in the first book, and she's old but in like a young body. And anyway, this tells the story about what happened to her when she went to her magical land. And I really enjoyed it. I wasn't in love with it, but I did really like it. And I only tabbed 3 things, which makes me a little sad. But I did enjoy them both. I gave these both 4 stars. Okay, this is when my reading month gets a little interesting. I started reading The Lies of Locke Lamora. I'll tell you what it's about. We'll start off with what it's about. So it is about this world that I don't think has magic in it, but it's a fantasy world. It's not our world. It's a fictional world with no magic, to my knowledge, so far. And it follows this guy, Locke Lamora, who is an orphan, and he's taken in by this guy who is a thief, and he just basically takes in a bunch of orphans and teaches them how to steal. They cause diversions, and they pickpocket and stuff like that so that they can steal for him. And he ends up getting sold to this other guy who's pretending to be a priest, and he lives with him and some other kids that he's taken in, and they become masters at stealing, basically. And then he gets older, and he's basically the leader of his own group, and he's got some kids that he teaches to steal and stuff. I'm assuming more is going to happen, but I'm just about halfway through. That's all that's happened. So anyway, I read a little less than half of it. Like, I read less than where I am now. And I am enjoying... Okay, so it goes back and forth between Locke in, like, the present day and Locke when he's growing up. And so far, I enjoy most of the sections about Locke as a child and growing up. Not a huge fan of him as an adult. I don't find his story interesting whatsoever. And it's also, like, super intense with, like, the cities and positions, political positions, and royalty positions, and jobs, and stuff like that that don't exist in real life with not enough context for me to understand. Like, I'm halfway through the story and I still don't really understand the things that they're talking about. And normally I'd be caught on by this point, I feel like. I also just feel like it's overly descriptive in not really the most interesting way to me, so I feel very bored a lot of the time while I'm reading it, and I'm really disappointed because I really thought I was going to love this book, and I really, really want to love it. But I put it aside to read a book with my friend, which was Beyond the Black Door by A.M. Strickland. Got about halfway through. Neither of us were enjoying it. Decided to stop reading it. This story is about a girl who can walk into people's souls. And in every person's soul that she goes into, there is a black door that her mother tells her not to open. And there's this secret society or something, and they kill her mother, and she runs away from them, and then she ends up opening the black door, and there's this mysterious guy who's very controlling, but she thinks is hot. I feel, well, first of all, I do not like that she is, like, wanting to have some kind of romantic, but not sexual relationship with this guy, because she is asexual, which is kind of cool. But she definitely wants to pursue, more than friendship with him, even though he's a creep. He's a stalker, he's controlling, like, he literally controls her body, and she's all like, that's okay. No, it's not. And I just feel like the story doesn't know what it's doing. It changed course like 3 times in a very short time span, and I just feel like it's kind of all over the place. I don't really understand what the point of the story is. Anytime I think we know what we're trying to get at, or what information we're trying to get, or what goal we're trying to reach, it changes, and then it's something else. And I feel kind of like it's, I don't know, I feel like it's just all over the place, and I wasn't really enjoying it. The thing, though, is I did like the writing, and I'm not opposed to picking up another book by this author in the future, depending on what it's about. But we weren't enjoying this, unfortunately, and we both decided to stop reading it. Then I read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I wanted to read something quick. I was feeling very slumpy after trying to get through Beyond the Black Door and not enjoying it, and also not enjoying The Lies of Locke Lamora as much as I had anticipated before that. I wanted to read something that I could just whip through in 1 or 2 sittings, so I picked up A Monster Calls, which I borrowed this from my friend. And it destroyed me. I read it in 1 sitting. It took me 2.5 hours, I think, or 3 hours to read. It destroyed me. It was really good, though. It was really, really, really good. So, A Monster Calls is a story that is inspired by another author who sadly passed away before she got to finish writing the story. She had kind of an outline written and the beginning written, and Patrick Ness was asked if he could write this story. And so he did. And it is about this boy who's in grade 7, I think. And he's bullied at school. And one of his best friends from when he was little isn't his friend anymore. And his mom has cancer and is really, really sick. And he does all of the stuff around the house. He makes his meals, he cleans up, he does the laundry. He does everything because his mom is so sick from her treatments. And this monster ends up visiting him, which is the tree in the cemetery across the way from his house. This big tree just comes to life and comes to visit him to tell him stories. It is really good, but don't read this unless you want to bawl your eyes out. Like, oh my goodness, sobbing. I was sobbing. This particular copy is illustrated. There is a version that you can get that isn't illustrated. I highly recommend the illustrated version. It really adds to the story. The pictures are very dark, and the story is it's sad. It's very sad, but it's not scary. I feel like the beginning is a little bit spooky because he doesn't know what's happening, and the pictures are spooky, but it's not a spooky story. It's a sad story. It's very sad. But it's got a little bit of comfort to it. Like, the idea of it is comforting. But it's very sad, but it's really good. It was really good. So I gave this 5 stars. After reading that, I thought, I can pick up The Lies of Locke Lamora again, and maybe I'll start enjoying it more. And I still feel the same. I still think I do want to try to read a little bit more of it. I'm not quite halfway through, so I think I want to try to get at least to the halfway mark and see how I feel at that point. But if I'm still not really into it at the halfway mark, I feel like I'm not going to enjoy it anymore if I continue, and I'll probably, unfortunately, sadly give up on it, which is also sad because I did tab 3 things. There were 3 things that I liked enough to tab. There were 2 funny things and 1 thing that was just, I mean, it's not like it spoke to me or anything, I just thought it was kind of cool. I really want to like this. I'm really, really hoping that I'm going to get to the halfway point and something is going to happen. Because also I've heard people describe this book as being action-packed and exciting, and literally nothing has happened in it. Like, nothing has happened. Like, it's not exciting at all. So I don't... So I'm hoping something's going to happen, maybe at the halfway point, and then it's going to get exciting. So that's what I'm hoping. So this is going to be on my June TBR, and I'm going to try to work my way through it. Spoiler alert for that video. I guess that's all. I did a lot of rambling in this one. This is going to take me a while to edit. And I guess that's all. Have a good day, guys. Bye.